Hello, and welcome to the OTC Markets Center. My name is Bob Power. I'm Vice President of the Corporate Services Group at OTC Markets. We're very pleased to have with us today Davor Sutija, CEO of Thin Film Electronics, trading on the OTCQX under the symbol TFECY. Davor, welcome to the OTC Markets Center.
Great to be here. Thank you.
Well, it's great to have you. Thanks. Well, please tell us a bit about Thin Film Electronics. What does your company do?
Thin Film was founded in 1995 to develop printed electronic systems. That means creating electronics in a fundamentally new way that is much less expensive than using conventional silicon wafers and silicon chips. It means using an additive technique, printing, that people know from conventional uses, but deploying it to create electronics that can be put on anything. In other words, even disposable goods can become a little bit smart by adding a printed integrated system.
Thin film is at the center of the Internet of Things. What exactly is the Internet of Things, and what will an IoT future look like?
The word Internet of Things is used in many different contexts. First, many people refer to that when they're talking about sensors gathering information from the environment around us, and then sharing that information with the cloud and creating new sources of data that can then be, through the internet, be mined and allow us to use those sensors as our agents. They can determine if food is fresh, if something is past its sell-by date. They can determine the temperature. Is the beer cold enough to drink? And printed electronics can be part of that solution by extending the Internet of Things beyond those types of devices that can afford the use of silicon chips and include electronics even in disposable items.
So with the anti-counterfeiting, I would imagine the applications for your product would be vast across many different sectors.
Yes, I mean, for example, in the wine industry, we announced a deal right after Mobile World Congress Shanghai, where wines that are being exported, one of the biggest exports from Australia is, of course, wines to primarily the Chinese market. And their consumers are very interested in knowing that they're buying authentic products. There are some reports that up to 50% of red wines may not be, in fact, the brand they're purported to be. So being able to use a wireless communicating tag that is just smart enough to be able to send information to your smartphone that guarantees authenticity is a great opportunity for the consumer, for the brand, and of course for Thin Film's product.
Wow, very interesting. So Davor, Thin Film is traded, a Norwegian company listed on the Oslo Stock Exchange. In March of this year, you decided to have your level 1 ADR traded on the OTCQX under the symbol TFECY. Could you tell us about the reasons for coming into the US and your experience with being traded on the OTCQX since March of this year?
Well, I think it was really a watershed moment for Thin Film. In the first quarter of this year, we also announced a major new product, our OpenSense product, together with Diageo, a global leader in packaged liquors. And we also started manufacturing in volume scale in our San Jose facility that we acquired last year. We acquired the assets of Covio, a California company. So having more activities globally meant that we also wanted to position ourselves to attract interest from the US financial community, from US investors. And for us, the OTCQX is the ideal market because it allows us to market to US investors and at the same time have a listing that allows us to use our current regulatory environment to also have a financial instrument denominated in dollars. So it really met all of the needs we had, and together with Cowen, which is a leading mid-market investment bank here in New York, they act as our principal American liaison, and we've been able to use that OTCQX listing to better market Thin Film to US investors.
That's excellent. We're delighted to have your company on our market. Printed electronics is a competitive market. How does Thin Film differentiate itself? And where do you see the potential for the most growth? And are you a global company?
Well, printed electronics is a very broad classification. There's over 300 companies in the world working on different aspects of printed electronics. Many of them are creating a component, for example, a printed display, or for example, printed photovoltaics. Over the last 5-10 years has attracted literally billions of dollars of investment. The area that thin film focuses on is printed integrated systems. And that's because since the early days, since the late 90s and early 2000s, when we developed together with Intel a printed rewritable memory, we had a unique ability to create integrated systems that both could do a calculation and store the result. And if you can do some kind of a numerical calculation using logic, and you can then store the result for reading later, then you essentially have the key elements of a computational system. So that means we can create very simple electronic systems at a cost point that cannot be matched by silicon, that can also communicate to ordinary smartphones. With the advent of NFC, Apple Pay and Samsung Pay are making NFC an important part of the way that we use smartphones. Thin film has a unique opportunity to position itself as the electronic leader in that new space of NFC-enabled smart systems. So yes, our customers are global. I mentioned the Australian company exporting to China, Diageo, also Xerox has licensed our memory technology and is scaling that to 1.3 billion units of production already by early next year. And they have launched cryptographic and anti-counterfeiting labels that are based on thin film technology under the Xerox brand. So in all of these cases, these are global players that are deploying thin film in order to be able to create electronics at a unique performance to cost essentially trade-off.
Excellent developments. What else do you want U.S. investors to know about Thin Film Electronics, traded on the OTCQX under the symbol TFECY?
Well, I think it's early days for thin film in the good sense of that word. It means that the opportunities are really in front of us. As people see that NFC is not only useful for tapping and payments, but all types of transactions where they're user-initiated exchange of information, we see NFC as being a building block of the Internet of Things. And people predict in the next 3 to 5 years that NFC labels are going to be ubiquitous in a number of industries. So I look forward to sharing those developments with investors in the US and those who are invested in thin film on the OTCQX market.
Davor Sutija, CEO of Thin Film Electronics, traded on the OTCQX under the symbol TFECY. We're delighted to have you here today. Thanks for visiting with us.
Thank you.